Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is late getting up because I was lazy. Basically, I slept and napped all day. So I'm only now getting to the video, which means it's dark outside, which means I'm using my grow lights as lighting, which means my glasses are going to have a weird glare and the lighting's going to be bad and so on and so forth. So I apologize for that in advance. I do try to get my videos filmed during the day when there's natural lighting just to avoid all these issues, but obviously that doesn't always happen. Today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you how much money I spent on plants in 2022. This is something I've seen quite a few people talking about and doing. I just thought it'd be a cool and neat little video. I just want to preface this video by saying that I have spent gross amounts of money on plants. I have most likely, on more than one occasion, put too much money into plants. And I do that because of a void that I feel. I've been in therapy for a couple of years. I did recently stop, but when I was in therapy, I did learn that one of the ways that I self-soothe and one of my coping mechanisms when I'm upset or sad is to buy plants, and it became a really dangerous and bad habit. I think last year, 2022, was particularly bad just because of some things that were going on in my life. I think they kind of pushed me over the edge a little bit, and my old coping mechanisms came back, and you can see kind of a pattern from where I was in a good space and how much money I was spending versus being in a bad space and how much money I was spending then. There's definitely patterns there that I've come to recognize and that I have been in treatment for. I just don't want to make it seem like this is a normal amount of money to be spending or normal. Like, I realize that it's not, and I realize that I have spent very frivolously and dangerously. So I know it's a problem. You probably know it's a problem. I'm just putting it out there that I too know that it's a problem. And it's something I'm actively working on. Another thing that contributes a lot to the way that I spend money on plants and buy and accumulate plants has to do with my OCD. If you don't know, hoarding disorder is very common amongst people with OCD. It actually is a form of OCD. So that plays a factor in how much money I've spent on plants and how much plants I've accumulated. In addition to that, I also have bipolar disorder. So I go through phases where I have very high highs and very low lows. And when I'm in those very low lows, I self-soothe by buying plants to try and feel something other than just this empty, lonely depression. And when I'm high, like having one of my, highs, I'm spending money frivolously because I can't understand or I can't see the future impact that it's having on me financially. And before I was medicated, that was something I really struggled with because I would be getting my life back on track, and then all of a sudden I would have a high or go through a period where I was manic and spend all the money and all the progress I had made and undo it by buying plants. And that's something that makes the disorder so incredibly difficult to treat and deal with, is because you're constantly just like building your life back up only to tear it back down again. But yeah, I do want to get into this video. For me, what really has helped is keeping track of exactly what I'm spending on plants and seeing the numbers, like going back to last year and writing down everything I spent and adding it all up and realizing just how just how insane it was to be spending the money that I was on a monthly basis or yearly basis, whatever. It's just to have that visual is really eye-opening. Plants are my hobby. Plants are something that I am very passionate about. And so obviously the money that I do have for spending on things for myself are likely going to be plants, but I think it's about finding that fine balance between overspending and spending to fill a void versus spending an appropriate, reasonable amount on your hobby. This year, set out goals for myself to try and get into healthier spending habits when it comes to plants and hoarding, I guess. It's something that runs in my family, so anyway, I just wanted to put that disclaimer at the start of the video. If you skipped over it, that's totally fine. I am okay with that. I'm going to be starting with the month of January, where I spent a total of $242.70. I had made 6 purchases that month on plants, and they were all $50 or under. So, well, sorry, they were all 50 and under, so kind of reasonable. It was still like a couple $100, and I know that like that's an obscene amount for some people to spend on plants. It's an obscene amount for me as well. I'm not gonna try and say it wasn't. A much more reasonable amount, in my opinion, would have been in February, where I spent $64.53, so $65 the entire month on plants. One of my goals this year is to try and go as many months as I can without buying any plants. So that's kind of a challenge I've set for myself, because there's no reason or really justification for buying plants every single month of the year. I've also kind of like started tackling my savings by removing my money from my account. So if I can't see it, I can't spend it. In March, I spent $167.60. In April, I spent $403.96. May, I spent $133.23. June is where things started kind of going bad for me in terms of my mental well-being. I spent in June $1,372. Sorry, my cat was being a jerk. In June, I spent $1,372.12 on plants, and that was over many purchases. It wasn't, all one thing. Some of them were very hefty price tags on plants. I think the most expensive plant I spent that month was $200 on one single plant, and the rest were kind of just like individual purchases that added up over the month. I think one of the ways that I get caught too is that I see a plant that's like a good reasonable price, so I buy it thinking that, oh, it's only, $12, but those $12 add up a lot over time. In July, I spent $1,084.38. In August, I spent a whopping $2,330.44. So just a little side note that this is where things went really bad for me in 2022. I had a mental health crisis in my family. My family has a lot of intergenerational trauma, addiction issues, mental health issues, just very difficult things going on in my family. And someone very close to me went through a crisis, and they were actually missing for a while. It was also during this month that my boyfriend ended up being deployed for his job, so he wasn't home that month either. So my unhealthy coping mechanisms kicked back in, and I went crazy with spending money on plants to try and make myself feel better. In September, I kind of got things under control a little bit. No, I'm not even gonna say that. I did not have things under control. I spent $498, which is still an insane amount of money to spend on plants in 1 month. So I'm not gonna say I had it under control. It was much better than August, obviously, but September was still, you get the idea. In October, I spent $615.05. In November, I spent $122.65. And in December, I spent $271.53. So for a grand total, I spent $8,678.31 in 2022. It's so like embarrassing like to say it out loud because of how ridiculous it is, and it makes me want to do better, and it makes me want to hold myself accountable because I'm ashamed that I spent that much money on plants, and I'm ashamed that I'm ashamed that I lost so many of my plants that I spent all that money on, and now I have nothing. It's just been very eye-opening. And I don't need to be scolded or talked down upon or anything like that. I'm fully aware of the position I put myself in, and that's why I want to do better. And it's also why I want to kind of bring awareness to this side of mental health, the ugly side of mental health that people don't talk very much about. You hear a lot about depression and anxiety and OCD, but no one really talks about the financial burden or the shame or the hoarding or the less desirable, the less flashy, pretty, sparkly sides of mental health, the ugly of mental health, I guess. So yeah, that's me being totally transparent on how much I spent on plants in 2022. Here's to doing better this year. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow.